Hello, and welcome to Business Lessons from the Military. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel, and we are here every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time and 2 p.m. Eastern time with an hour in for Central and Mountain. Our purpose is to talk about military doctrine, military history, military leadership, and translate that into how those concepts can be used to help you improve your professional life, build your business, or help the company you're working for become more successful. So we took a couple weeks off over the last 2 weeks for some special shows. And today we're going to go back to our discussion of Marine Corps warfighting doctrine. And we're going to be talking about the subject of decision making. So I'm going to jump right into that, and you'll see we have our hopefully you agree, cool looking, military, PowerPoint, because in the military, you do not make a presentation without a PowerPoint. It is a verboten, as the Germans used to say. Okay, all right. It's like, why is a Jewish guy talking about German stuff? Because the Germans are cool. Okay, so everything we do here on the Way to Wow shows relates to the 3 pillars of attainment. This show, like my other ones, deals with the pursuits pillar, and we're dealing specifically in the finance realm. But as is the case with almost anything in our professional lives, relationships are going to play a part, especially friends and colleagues. Family is impacted by our professional lives. And in the end, our self, our identity, our mindset, our health, both impact our business lives as well as are impacted by our business lives. So over the last several weeks, we've talked about the conduct of war applied to business. That's been our most recent part of Marine Corps warfighting doctrine that we've dealt with. And we've talked about maneuver warfare, orienting on the enemy, philosophy of command, and shaping the action. So if you missed those shows or would like to review them, please go to my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com. I think it's /@thewaytowow. And you'll see all of the past episodes for business lessons, military lessons applied to business, military lessons from the military applied to business. Okay, anyway, I can't remember the name of my own show. It's that kind of morning here in Los Angeles. But anyway, you can see all those past episodes there, as well as past episodes from my other shows. Okay, so today, as I mentioned, our topic is decision making. And in any business venture, decision making is a function of almost every single person involved in the venture, whether it's a huge retail organization like, for example, Walmart, or whether it's a solo entrepreneur, or however that's pronounced, business where it's just one person. Decision making is something that everybody does. Let's take the Walmart. So you have the people who are there in the stores, they have their vests on, they're interacting with the customers directly, and just the simple decision of how they're going to help a customer who asks, where do I find potato chips, right? That how they decide to render that assistance will have an impact on that customer and the sales that particular Walmart generates. If they're dismissive of the customer, they're over there somewhere, what are the chances that the customer is going to follow through? They may just decide, well, I don't care about me buying potato chips, so I guess I'll leave. Whereas, you know what? Let me make sure I give you the right information. I think they're over here on aisle 12. Let me just walk over with you and make sure that I'm giving you the correct information. Oh yeah, there they are, right down there. Do you see them? Great. Okay. Need anything else? No? Okay. Excellent. So just a simple decision like that. And by the way, those decisions are made by the frontline staff, dozens of times a day, right? And they have a direct impact on the bottom line of that business. So I think so here in Los Angeles, the grocery store I typically go to is Ralph's. It's part of Kroger's. And I think they've trained their people that when a customer asks, where do I find, baby food? They must be trained to say, oh, let me take you. And they walk you over to where it is. They don't just give you the aisle number or whatever. Okay. Even if they're involved in something else, it appears to me they walk you over. So, that's, you may say, okay, so the decision making has been taken out of their hands. I disagree. The employee still has the decision to make. Do I follow company policy or not? Right? I mean, are they really going to get fired if they don't walk me over to, I don't buy baby food, but whatever it is I'm looking for? Probably not. 99 customers out of 100 are not going to complain if the person were to say, I think it's over on aisle 12, right? Okay, thank you. And in fact, I wouldn't, I think that's perfectly fine. I'm a big boy. I can go over to aisle 12. If I don't find it on aisle 12, I can come back and say, I looked on aisle 12. I didn't see it. I must be blind or whatever, So decision-making happens at all levels. And I've talked about this in other contexts. In the Marine Corps especially, decision-making is pushed as far down the chain of command as possible, because the closer someone is to the problem, most likely the more information they're going to have, the more situational awareness they're going to have. And so they're going to be better poised to make that decision. That is the philosophy of the Marine Corps. Okay. And generally, I think that's true. I think that's true in business as well. So if you've got a customer in a retail store that has a problem, the person dealing with the customer is going to have a much better sense of what's going on than a supervisor up in the office, or worse, some customer service vice president back at corporate headquarters. And while you may set general policy for how to deal with customer complaints or whatever, it's very powerful to give frontline people the authority to make a decision about how to help a customer with their complaint. Okay, and it ends up paying off both in employee retention, from what I understand, and certainly in customer satisfaction. Most customers don't want to have to go through a whole long thing and to deal with their complaints. So, all right, so let's now look at the conduct of war as applied to business with respect to decision making. Okay, so Marine Corps doctrine says any decision is better than no decision. Excuse me. Now, that doesn't mean that the decision has to be the decision to act. What it means is affirmatively deciding whether to act or not, and if to act, what that act will be, is better than delaying the decision, not making a decision, and being overtaken by events. Okay? And the same is true in business. We want to make an affirmative decision. Now, we may make the decision saying, based on what we know about the situation right now, we're not in a position to decide whether, option A, B, or C is the best way to go. We need the following in order to make that decision. That's still a decision, right? It may not be the ultimate decision, but it is a decision. That's better than just sort of letting things bump along until the picture, potentially becomes clearer. I think we would all agree these days, business moves so quickly that it just gets out of hand if we're not staying on top of it. And it can, I understand it can be exhausting constantly having to make decisions. That's the nature of business today, though. Okay, so we have to be ready to do that. So, excuse me. Any decision is better than no decision. Okay, and I will go so far as to say, in most cases, the decision to take an action is going to be better than the decision not to act. Okay, faced with a problem, we're better off taking some kind of action than just sitting back. And the reason is because if we keep ourselves in the mode of responding, we are more likely to get to the best response than if we are constantly standing back. Okay? Because when we stand back, we give the initiative to someone else. And now all of a sudden, they're more likely to control the results or control the events. So in business, to the extent possible, we want to keep as much control of events as we can. Now, obviously, we do not control destiny, but if we are in an action mode, okay, actively going out, where are the problems? Where are the issues? What do we need to be focused on? How do we respond to this? Okay, let's do this. Okay, we're more likely to keep ahead of the competition. Okay, and just look at the business landscape, companies just being overtaken by events because they just couldn't keep their decision making active enough, and so they got essentially run over by the competition or run over by changes in the business. Okay, it happened to Bed Bath and Beyond at this point. What was the one I was just reading about the other day? Shoot, I can't remember the name of the company, but at the last minute they got rescued, so it looks like they won't be closing. Look at H&M. H&M is working to stay ahead of the curve. So they used to just sell their own clothing, and that was it. Now they're bringing in other clothing suppliers, Adidas and whatever. So they're looking to bring other people into their orbit. They're looking to sell home furnishings. They're looking to sell cosmetics, right? And by the way, every single one of those decisions may be wrong. I don't know. I don't know H&M's business that well. What I will say, though, is by being willing to experiment, by being willing to take on new challenges and see how they work out, they're going to learn. Okay, and they'll be less likely to be overtaken by changes in the market. Okay, by the way, H&M is also looking, they've set up a like an online marketplace to sell secondhand clothes, what amounts to used clothes. Okay, is that going to go anywhere? Who knows? But it is something that's happening in clothing retail right now. Okay, and so I think they're smart to be trying out these different things. How do they work? Right? If we end up in kind of the economic doldrums for a longer period of time, having an online secondhand clothing marketplace could be a very good thing, because people will look for bargains in their clothing, right? And so again, the idea that they're trying new things, they're experimenting. How do we extend our brand? How do we keep ahead of what the other competitors are doing? All of that is I think very smart activity on their part. Okay, and it all gets down to decision making. Right. All right. So one of the key parts of decision making is to understand how much time is available for information gathering and analysis before the decision needs to be made or before we get overtaken by events. So anytime you're faced with a decision, the next thought should be, okay, how much time do I have to make this decision? It's probably less than you think. That's why when I was talking about customer complaints and customer service, I said it's best to give frontline people as much authority as possible, because the reality is, if someone has a complaint, if someone takes the time to come into a store to complain about something, to return a piece of merchandise or whatever it is, there's probably a relatively short window of time in which to satisfy that customer. Okay. Now, let me quickly add, I do not subscribe to the philosophy that the customer is always right. Sometimes the customer is bloody wrong. Okay. Empowering frontline people to be able to say, with all due respect, sir, ma'am, this is not our problem. I mean, that's not very diplomatic. You wouldn't want to quite say it that way, but this is not a complaint that is valid. That sometimes just the customer getting a final decision right away is the best thing, rather than, would it be better for them to go through hours of dealing with different people in the store and in corporate to find out, no, this is not something we're prepared to do anything about? No, that would be worse. Okay. And the reality too is, by the way, if a customer is unreasonable, what good does it do to try and retain that customer? Okay. That customer is only going to take up a lot of time and a lot of expense to the business for no return, no financial return. Okay. So, but going back to time available, okay, the time available is probably shorter than you think. And so there, especially when there's some kind of problem, the pressure is on. Okay. And that's why I'm going to go back to, any decision is better than no decision. Okay. Because most of the time, you're not going to have the time to thoroughly analyze every single decision that needs to be made. Sometimes you're going to have to go with your gut. What do you think is the best decision in this? Okay. And the best way to develop good gut-making decision ability is to use it. Have it for your people, or you, to have the leeway to make some mistakes. Hopefully be able to fix those mistakes, learn from them, and then move on to making the next decision. There is no substitute for learning to make better decisions than making more decisions. No substitute at all. Okay. Now, one of the ways to mitigate the time constraint is to be as situationally aware as possible. Okay. Because good decision making comes from, number one, situational awareness, and two, creative ability. Okay. Those two combined are going to give you the best decisions. Okay. As opposed to a strict sort of hierarchy of, well, if this happens, this happens. This sort of, rote decision making. Rote decision making, there's nothing that will infuriate most people more than a sense that they're just being treated like a number. Okay. I will confess to that. When I feel like I'm getting like this sort of automatic response where I might as well be talking to, if your problem is this, press 1. If your problem is this, press 2. It's like, okay, why am I even bothering? Right. So people want to be treated as individuals. Okay. I've been focusing on customer service. Let's now turn this to some other issue. Let's say you need to make some kind of decision about the strategic direction of your business. Okay, so situational awareness in that case is going to be much broader. What's happening in the marketplace? What's happening in the industry? What's happening in the economy? What's happening globally, politically, supply chains, all those kinds of issues. Okay. Do we really want to be making strategic decisions by rote? I don't think so. Right? We want to be as creative as we can, and that's fostering that creativity can be a big challenge because it's a risk, right? I've mentioned one of my favorite musicals many times, How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. There's a guy there who he does it the company way, right? He's always trying to figure out, what do they want to hear from me? That's what I say, right? Terrible for the success of a business, especially these days where business and the business environment is changing so quickly. So we want to foster our own creative ability. We want to foster the exercise of creativity on the part of our people, on the part of our team. Okay. And that and that's also why then any decision is better than no decision. So if people know that a decision is required, they're going to work on their creativity, okay? And they're going to know, I've got to exercise my creativity. I've got to get it going. It's a part of my everyday work, okay? So quickly assess the situation or assess the situation in whatever time is available and get to developing creative options. Okay. Rarely is there only one choice for making a decision, right? Rarely is the choice yes or no. Okay. Now, sometimes it is, but that's usually not the case. Usually there are other options. When we're talking about strategy for a business, unless we've gotten to the point where the business is on the brink of collapse, there are usually multiple strategic directions in which we can go. Going back to the customer service, rarely is it a decision of either yes or no to the customer. Really, it's more a decision of how do I satisfy the customer, okay? Assuming the customer can be satisfied, right? So that's why I say rarely is it a yes or no. Sometimes it is a yes or no. Sometimes the answer is no, okay? Thank you very much. We can't help you with this. Sorry about that. Goodbye. Okay. But normally it's a matter of taking the time to come up with creative options. Okay. And that is the crucial part of the decision-making process. All right. What good decision comes down to, or what good decision-making comes down to, I should say, is figuring out based on time available, awareness of the situation, generation of creative options, what is the most promising course of action for an acceptable level of risk that I can make in the time available to stay ahead of the competition. Okay. Now, let's put this in a combat context for a minute so you can see why warfighting doctrine works this way. If you're in the midst of a battle, you're a small unit commander, right? You're there on the front lines. Keeping the initiative probably means the difference between attaining your objective and not. It also probably means the difference between your people getting killed or wounded or not. Because the more we can keep the enemy off balance, the greater the opportunity we have for success. So as we have a very short time frame in which to make decisions, we need to figure out what is the most promising course of action. Okay. And by the way, the most promising course of action may not be that great, but it just may be the best one we have. Okay. But we have to balance that with the acceptable level of risk. So the most promising course of action may be a frontal assault, except for the frontal assault is on machine guns, masked, and we're probably, there's going to be a very high rate of casualties, Okay. And so assuming we can attain that objective, we're not going to be able to go any farther. And yet our ultimate objective is farther down the battlefield. Okay. So we've got to balance the promising course of action with the acceptable risk. And the same thing is true in business. Okay. We may have several strategic directions in which we can take our business. Which one of them is most likely to pay off? Okay. One may look like it's a really good opportunity, but it may suck up every bit of spare capital we have, every bit of focus on the part of our employees. And if it doesn't pan out, we may lose the business as a result. Whereas this other option that maybe doesn't look quite so promising, and yet if it doesn't work out, well, it doesn't put us out of the game. We live to try another option. That may be the better decision, is to go that route. Okay. Obviously, the specifics in both of these cases would matter. Sometimes we're going to have to, the best decision may be to risk it all on one toss of the dice. Other times, maybe not. The main thing is we need to balance those two faster than the competition. Okay. Of course, in war, faster than the enemy, right? The competition is, I don't want to make it like the enemy, like, they're going to kill us, that kind of thing. But the competition is ruthless is the wrong word. It's there. It's just always there. It's always looking to overtake us. So we need to make our decision-making loop as fast as possible, as small as possible. Okay. Still hopefully more often than not coming up with good decisions. And so this all plays into company philosophy. Okay. It's part of the culture of the company. So if you're, for example, looking for a job, or looking to affiliate with an organization, or you're building your own organization, one of the things to look at is, how do I foster a culture of good decision making? Okay. Part of that is going to come from people knowing that even if they make the wrong decision, if their rationale was essentially sound, it's going to be okay to make wrong decisions. Okay. It's going to happen. Think about it in the military. If you're in the Marine Corps in combat and a wrong decision is made, it probably means one or more of your Marines is shot, maybe killed, and that's horrible. Okay. But the reality is that is the nature of battle. Mistakes get made, people get hurt, the effort gets damaged, it needs to regroup to fight on for the next day. So the same is true of our businesses. We're going to make mistakes. Our people are going to make mistakes. We've got to be resilient enough to survive those mistakes. And one way we can do that is by fostering a culture of decision making, whereby everybody is involved in analyzing the situation and giving their input. Wow, we made that decision last week. You know what? I don't think it's working out that well. I think we need to do something else. And that's coming from, one of your frontline employees. They may be the first people to know. Okay. So this is the philosophy for making decisions that will take your business to its best place, or the company that you're working for. And by the way, this is true of nonprofits, as I've mentioned before. This is true, I would argue, in academia. I think it would be true in government too. Government doesn't seem to work that way. Okay. So let's just review these real quickly, because we're going to run out of time here. So first of all, any decision is better than no decision. Okay. Time available is a crucial factor. We want to be situationally aware. We want to exercise creativity in figuring out our options so that the decision we make has explored these various options. And finally, the decision we make should be based on what is the most promising course of action balanced against acceptable risk made faster than the competition. Okay. If we consistently do that, then we're going to be successful. Okay. When I say consistently, I mean more often than not. We're not going to always do that. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to have to, maybe retreat a little bit, regroup, and then push forward again. Okay. Sorry, George Patton. We may have to stand fast and alter our battle plan. Okay, from George Patton's perspective. All right. So that's good decision making, developed from the conduct of war as applied to business. So I'll take the screen sharing away to wrap up. So that's our show for today. Tomorrow, I have my show, People Making Money, 12:30 p.m. Pacific, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. My guest is Paul of Honorable Marketing. I don't want to mangle his last name, so I'm not gonna try and say it. He'll teach me to say his last name. Paul is an Army veteran who started a digital marketing company a number of years ago, and I think you will both profit from hearing his story as well as hearing his thoughts on digital marketing, which of course is such a big part of business today. And then next week on Monday, we'll be starting it all again. So Monday is Trust and Estates Weekly. And then, of course, we'll be here again next Tuesday for the next edition of Business Lessons from the Military. So I thank you very much for watching. Any questions, comments, good or bad, feel free to drop them into our social media, or send me an email, my email address will be in the comments section of once this video posts on YouTube. And do me a favor, consider, if you're new to the Way to Wow shows, consider subscribing to my channel. That way you'll always be notified when a new show posts, and we can all grow together in our professional lives. So thank you very much for joining me, and signing off as I always do, to Marie, my dear friend, darling, you are my belle. Thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Hope to see you tomorrow.